It almost feels that they are too big to fail. They've inherited this responsibility in the world where everything they do, every move they make is put under extreme scrutiny. And I'm not surprised. The significance and the impact that this technology could and is having on society goes way beyond capitalism and goes way beyond them as a business, and they seem not to be playing by the same rules.
These companies aren't really sure what they're doing here. They're just sort of trying something, and they're trying to replicate what they've seen before. And you're feeding into people's fears that AI can basically... You're directly feeding into that fear.
One of their founding engineers has just quit, citing a long thread, and within that thread, he quit on the basis that they are not spending enough time on safety, they're not spending enough time on controls, and they're shipping products at a pace that he believes is unethical. In this week's Memes and Machines, we talk about OpenAI, Sam Altman. Has he done a swing and a miss? Are they too big to fail? Other tech giants, Apple, Google, what is happening with all these launches and what can marketeers learn? Hiring. Catty and I share our top tips as a hirer and also share some tips if you are seeking. And we actually give a secret tool that will make your hiring 10x better. We describe our miss of the month. What was the missed opportunity for brands that no one seemingly took advantage of? And more importantly, during that, we came up with an idea for a dating app that I am going to sell to one of our clients. And finally, e.l.f. Beauty, how they are delivering corporate comms with flair, creativity, and purpose. I applaud them.
Check your emails because I might be trying to hire you.
Farcaster. Catman, it is good to see you. I have missed your face. I think we skipped a week, didn't we?
Yeah, I guess we did. That's been, is that the first time?
Maybe second. I think one time we had a holiday. Actually, considering the tenure of this podcast, I think our commitment to the cause has been somewhat unwavering.
It has.
You know, even the mighty
but we
fall.
wavered.
we did waver, but I feel a little bit like Tyson Fury. You know, you achieve greatness, you go on, you're at a mountaintop, just finding that hunger, and sometimes you take an L. Did you watch the fight, by the way?
I actually didn't. I was ready to watch it, and then it was kind of like middle afternoon here, and I don't know, it didn't strike me, but I should have watched it. Did you enjoy it?
Oh yeah, phenomenal. Me, A, and Steve, we got a lot of snacks, a lot of food, slobbed out, and yeah, phenomenal event. I'm a huge boxing fanboy, so for me it was good. I think the right man won. It's sad to see all the titles leave Britain. However, I couldn't think of a more worthy winner. Integrity, the consummate athlete, everything about Usyk, unparalleled resume, resume. Yeah, everything about that I think was well deserved. And I won. I'm like 2 months into bets. I think this is my gateway into being a degenerate gambler, because for the last 2 months I have failed. I've got a system now and I haven't lost a bet. So I'm putting that on record.
What's the system?
Well, on boxing I do round betting, but I have a preference on an outcome, and then I'll do round betting and then put a more significant stake on an outcome. So I stick my stake in the ground, but that allows me to hedge my bets a little. And then I do parlays on MMA fights, and I'm pretty dialed into MMA. So 80% of the time, MMA is unpredictable, but like 80% of the time I get it right. So yeah, my system is working. I've not been able to replace the full-time job and replace my gambling income with my entrepreneur's income with gambling, but never say never. I've seen Drake do it on YouTube. Have you seen that man wilding out? He's become like the poster child for gambling.
Yeah, this is famous last words. This is all gonna I'm going to play this back to you in 6 months when you're
It's shirtless.
begging me for $10.
Shirtless, and I send you my crypto wallet unprompted or a Revolut ask with an emoji. Yeah, something of that nature is coming. No, I don't advocate for gambling to anyone listening, but I don't spend much. I literally put £50 an event. That's my thing. I do £50 an event. I stay disciplined, and my bag's getting bigger. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, onto the show. Interesting news recently, because we've not spoken a week. There's probably a few things I want to pick your brain on. Number one, OpenAI. Interesting. There's a few narratives around OpenAI right now. I think one that is particularly interesting was the Scarlett Johansson scandal. Do you want to shed a little bit of light, and what's your take?
Yeah, I think it's, in general, I've enjoyed following OpenAI because it's probably the first new company of the last 10 years that has the same spotlight and reach as we used to with like an Apple or a Facebook. They're kind of like the new kids on the block that have this almost elevated responsibility where everything they do is scrutinized and everything they do has immense impact and almost this kind of philosophical impact on the world, right? It isn't just, how does this announcement affect business? It's how does this announcement affect humanity? And I think we had that with Apple, we had that with Facebook, but with OpenAI, it feels almost like another level because there are so many unknowns and there is so much kind of ambiguity and fear around AI. So they have this kind of like, probably unexpected responsibility to feed into. I remember when they first announced the kind of ChatGPT, voice demos and there was a lot of excitement around it. And a lot of people commented on the fact that they had, oh my God, they must have hired Scarlett Johansson to voice this. It sounds exactly like her. Like, damn, that's a huge, like they were congratulating OpenAI. Damn, you killed that. It then turns out that it wasn't Scarlett Johansson's voice, that she hadn't, done the voice for this demo. And suddenly it was like, oh, okay, they just used someone to sound like her. And obviously they've, if you've ever watched the movie Her, it's Scarlett Johansson voicing a ChatGPT style AI bot that somebody dates. And the demo is eerily similar to what happens in the movie. So it's clear that they were trying to kind of pull on those parallels. But then a really unusual kind of development this week is that Scarlett Johansson comes out with a statement and says, I didn't work with ChatGPT here. This isn't my voice. And in fact, it's incredibly disturbing that they've used my likeness, right, in order to, further their product, which is a kind of odd dystopian product in itself. And so for me, it again seems like a huge comms blunder where you're going against somebody's wishes, you're feeding into people's fears that AI can basically artificially, create content or have you say something you didn't say or, put something into the world that appears to be from you but isn't. You're directly feeding into that fear and constantly, I guess, reducing your legitimacy as a serious business and as a business that has these kind of, the best wishes of your customers at heart. So, just seemed like an odd thing to do, and it didn't really sit right with the community. And I don't think it's maybe OpenAI is one of those companies that can't be stopped, but this stuff can't help.
It almost feels that they are too big to fail. And what I mean by that is they do get away with things. They've inherited this responsibility in the world, to your point, where everything they do, every move they make is put under extreme scrutiny. And I'm not surprised. The significance and the impact that this technology could and is having on society goes way beyond, capitalism and goes way beyond them as a business. So I think the scrutiny is fair. The Scarlett Johansson point is really fascinating for two reasons. It raises the question again and puts it front and center around image and likeness and the governance and the protections we put around artists, creators, etc. in a world where things are being generated in real time and the distinction between real and fake, the lines have been blurred in a manner that's indistinguishable. So it puts a spotlight on that. What I found shocking is Scarlett Johansson confirmed that Sam Altman had reached out to her. Not only copying someone, but actually engaging in them. She decided to decline the work. So you imagine asking an artist, going, nah, and then doing it anyway. I just think it speaks to how irresponsible they're behaving. And that's what I mean by too big to fail. I don't think many companies, I do feel that this will just like blow over because there's so much of this type of news. It is probably, when I think about it and deep it, I'd say it's disheartening. This idea that just company can relentlessly get away with this time and time again. And they seem not to be playing by the same rules. They seem to have arguably too much power. Today, I believe one of their lead engineers, one of their founding engineers has just quit, citing a long thread. And within that thread, he quit on the basis that they are not spending enough time on safety. They're not spending enough time on controls, and they're shipping products at a pace that he believes is unethical. All resources is being put on shipping new products. And look, I think all the companies are going through this right now. When you think of Google and OpenAI and Microsoft and Nvidia and Adobe and everybody just coming together just to ship new products, and it's top each other. I think we're moving into an interesting era of tech communication. What are your thoughts on like what's happening more broadly with all these launches, and were there any that you particularly admired?
Yeah, it just feels like, I mean, this is kind of just feels like the epitome of capitalism, right? Where you have, ultimately they're all in competition with each other, right? So it feels like a winner takes all battle, and as a result, there is a race, right? Which means that they have to ship and outship each other. A lot of it is, it's again, like all these things, it's starting to feel like there's a lot of very similar ideas being worked on, right? So like you have the kind of hardware going on, which is interesting, but a lot of those products feel the same. A lot of them don't really solve any new problems, and so I think that's been interesting to see. And then the same with the software side. Again, they all feel like kind of, derivatives in some way of ChatGPT. I think Meta, for example, they shipped a their kind of ChatGPT clone, and you can find it in like the search bar of Instagram. I remember clicking on it and I wanted to search something about Instagram. I was like, show me, Manchester United's top liked photo. And it couldn't do that because it wasn't for searching Instagram. It was like a chat bot. It was just a language model. Yeah. I thought, well, why is this on my Instagram search? It's almost like they're just trying to get ahead of each other without really thinking about the context that these tools or products actually work in. And so there's nothing really that's caught my attention wow, this is like gonna ultimately impact my life in any way. And so I kind of ignore a lot of the product announcements. I'm mainly just observing it from like, how do they handle their marketing and how do they handle their announcements? I saw Google on the day ChatGPT did their announcement. They also did their announcement, and they had this kind of singer, I think Mark Rebay, I don't know how to say his second name. Mark Rebay, he's like this big YouTube kind of singer, like crazy, energetic guy. And I think they were trying to replicate that kind of early 2000s Microsoft energy, right? If you remember like one of the founders up on stage getting excited about developers.
Steve Ballmer kind of just going absolutely. Yeah. That's just an infinite meme.
Exactly. Trying to replicate that kind of energy. But it just, something about it felt very engineered and felt very corporate. And this is a YouTuber who he is a music creator, and he as part of the brand deal that he did, he posted a video on his YouTube which was him using Google's AI tools to create music, and the comments were just distraught. His fans were just up in arms. They hated it because they felt that he was the kind of antithesis of this computer-generated style music. And so the whole thing for me just felt like these companies aren't really sure what they're doing here. They're just sort of trying something, and they're trying to replicate what they've seen before. And I don't know, in general, like I feel like Apple started it with their keynotes, their announcements. Everything off there has been these kind of weak derivatives since then, and doesn't feel like anyone's really getting it right in terms of like public comms. And are they getting as excited about AI? I'm not sure.
I think it's difficult. I would say if you think the bar has continued to be raised time and time again since Apple. Apart from Apple, Apple have just... It was funny, I watched a montage earlier of the iPhone being released year after year, and it's basically the same sentence being said. Time. This is the most advanced iPhone we've ever created. Boom, boom. Through 15 iterations or whatever we've gone through. Yeah, look, I agree with you. I think it's very difficult to show up in a new, interesting way that, to your point, is authentic. Because these are now spectacles. Tech companies are entertainment companies. Business leaders are rock stars. You know, there's this kind of this conflation of how we show up in entertainment and trying to bring that to these worlds to create experiences. I agree, a lot of it does feel inauthentic. I just think it's very difficult. My favourite things that I thought Google really won in terms of the demo, because they'd come under some scrutiny of releasing product updates and over-engineering the kind of videos, whereas in the latest update, it was kind of a walkthrough of the product in real time, the features being used, and, you know, there's some contrarian things in there, like recall, which is really interesting. Having a device that's basically monitoring everything around you in real time.
Yeah.
And the ability then to store that and ask questions based on that, that's contentious in the sense of, you know, privacy and overreach of tech, but it's super useful. The demo is like, where did I leave my keys? By the desk over there on the hat, next to the hat.
That is helpful.
Like, yeah, I thought they just showed some like novel, really cool user cases. I think the language piece is phenomenal, the real-time translation. I think the ability to solve problems and look at code. I just think now it's the equivalent of having a team around you, and you've just got these AIs that are augmenting your life. I still think you have to be a high performer, and it speaks to the broader point you kind of started this with about, like, let's just do things that people want that are authentic. I spoke at a business school earlier which I did feel a hell of an imposter. It was a ton of international MBA students, and I was there to give a lecture at their symposium, and I was just thinking of my relationship with education and journey, and I thought, wow, we've really stooped to all-time lows, scraping the barrel, bringing the boy from Barnsley. But no, one of the questions that I got asked after was, it was the questions around AI, and one I thought was really interesting was like, where should I anchor my business? I want to build a business in this space. What's your advice? I want to build something in the next 10 years. And should I get into infrastructure? That's potentially really lucrative. The infrastructure is being laid around the world right now. Should I be building application layers? And my answer was all of the above could be, has potential. But fundamentally, you shouldn't start a business with the technology first. You start a business solving a problem or creating some value in the world. I think too many people are guided by the technology. And it's to your point, you're seeing just Instagram, Meta just introduced Llama into their products for no apparent reason. It's not how I behave on Instagram. It's not how I would use it. And if they spent the time introducing that into their back end as a business tool, so I could get more rich analytics, or I could find out about competition, they could charge me a premium for doing so, right? I just think it's kind of misguided sometimes. And one of the things, Apple have kind of been under scrutiny for missing an edge, the thing no one ever asked for. We're getting a thinner phone. It's like, come on, Tim. We don't need a thinner phone. It's thin enough. I think it'd be annoying if it got any thinner. And then Siri's just dropped the ball. They had everything. I do think Apple's going to show up. They're never first. Usually early. They're definitely not early in the AI race. But I hope they do show up, because my entire life is anchored to Apple products. But yeah, I suppose my broader point is, I think too many businesses now see the shiny new toy, and are just making misguided decisions. And even the largest, most successful, smartest people and the biggest tech companies in the world are doing exactly that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, a lot of it, like you said, like it's probably going to be some new kids on the block that think from first principles, right? It's going to be probably not an Apple or probably not a Google that come up with something that feels, like this is really something we haven't seen before. And then Google and Apple will buy them or they'll do it better. So I think that's probably just the reality.
It's interesting. I agree. And in some areas, the only reason I disagree this time is I think that will inevitably be an outcome. I just think the adoption piece right now, it's so costly, and there's truly so few people that really understand AI. Everybody has some AI pedigree or credentials, but the reality is the engineers that truly understand this, they're few and far between. So I think most of them are being very well looked after in titans of tech and the new incumbents that are coming through. So look, I'm a big advocate for the startup community, and I agree we will see some of it. I think for the next 2 years, I think Google, Apple, OpenAI, I think Microsoft, these guys have it on lock, but I would like to be wrong. Dude, you mentioned to me that you're doing some hiring. We're also doing some hiring. It's really interesting. A client of ours came to us and said, hey, we're hiring for this spec, and they sent me the job title, and I looked at it and I thought, my first reaction was, you're not hiring for a person, you're hiring for a marketing function. It was like SEO, content, think of every possible marketing discipline in one role. The next thing that then surprised me, I asked for the salary range. I said, happy to reach out to my network, or if I think there's an obvious fit, I'll connect you with a recommendation of anyone I think is strong. And then they gave me a massive salary that they were going with it. And the salary didn't match the title. And I just thought, how many companies will get it wrong by not spending the time to really engineer their job specs, to make them bespoke and fit for purpose. They're just going to churn out some ChatGPT garbage just for ease, not thinking about aligning a title with an appropriate salary. Just all these decisions that are just kind of bundled in this HR talent flywheel that most companies seem to be on. And you truly miss a trick, because I guarantee if I sent that job spec and I sent that job to someone with no context about this amazing company with this really high paying job, no one would apply. Everyone would dismiss it. So without that, I think companies are really misguided if they don't put the effort and resource into getting it right the first time. It reminds me a bit like an ad brief. It's an ad brief. You've got to put the effort in and make sure that it's thoughtful in nature. Give me your take on your hiring process right now, what you're looking for, and just some top tips for both companies that are making hires. Where are you looking for great talent? How do you go about it? But B, then also people maybe looking for a new opportunity, how to kind of project themselves and build their brand to find the right opportunity for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of job descriptions are just too long a lot of the time. I think people feel like they need to write this crazy, exhaustive list of this perfect candidate. I think the best thing that we have in our job descriptions is this. We have obviously what is high level overview of the role, but then it's what does a week look like? And it forces me to sit down and write down in a typical week under this role, you might do this, you might do that. Obviously not every week's going to look like this, but it gives very specific, tangible actions that person will probably do. And then quickly they will know this probably might not be the right role for me, or this sounds interesting. But even once we've done that, I don't find myself referring to job descriptions that often when it gets to the interview phase. I'm generally starting from scratch when I go to speak to someone, and I'm trying to figure out, is this somebody who is really right for our business? And I think an important distinction here as well is that I'm also seeing it as an opportunity for me to sell them a lot of the time, right? Because I think there's no guarantee that this person is interested in working with you, but it has to feel like a natural fit. And I think a really nice measurement somebody once told me is only hire people that you would work for, right? So like only, have someone in your team who you would actually have over you, right? So you actually are that impressed with them. You feel like you have a lot to learn from them. I think that's like an important distinction. Right. I think the other point, and this is, as I've found hiring like building a marketing team, in my opinion, you have to poach. And like,
what? Catman's on the prowl. You're out poaching.
I think you have to poach.
Where are you looking? Are you just a LinkedIn guy? You go to companies you admire?
LinkedIn. I'll tell you my poaching stack. So I use a tool called Gem, which has been a godsend. GEM. And you'll love this. It's a Google Chrome extension that you add to LinkedIn. That whenever you see somebody like the look of, you kind of add them to this list, right? And it will find all of their personal emails for you. You then write a sequence. So you add like 30 candidates to this list. You write 2 emails, like the initial outreach, then like a follow-up, and it will send it all for you. And if they don't reply, it will send the follow-up. It will send them your Calendly link. If they don't schedule a call, it will nudge them. Basically does everything for you, completely automates it. And that has basically 10x'd my output for hiring, because I really believe the best people are looking.
Of course.
And
I think in the majority of cases that's true.
Obviously, yeah. And
timing, context.
And actually a lot of the best people that we've hired for my team also applied. So that's not largely true, but I think there are certain roles, particularly more senior roles I've found, right? Like a lot of the time when we're hiring for like junior roles, I think people, it is more likely you're going to get people who've just graduated college, they're looking, and it's more about how do you find that, the hungry right person. But when it comes to hiring for senior roles, like I've found the most effective way is to go on LinkedIn, get really good at using LinkedIn Recruiter, look for companies that you admire and see who's there. Because that's, I think, another point as well. A lot of people will poach from companies, right? And then you'll ask them, do you think they do good marketing? And you're like, well, not really. It's like, well, you've actually got the evidence there for you. And so I look for companies I admire. I look for people who have been at companies I admire, even in the past, right? And then it's all about volume, because recruitment is actually more a process game than anything. There is some art behind it, but it's actually mostly process and science and just volume. The same way looking for a job. So
as
get your numbers up.
Yeah, as you were describing that, I was just thinking, and I don't know how I'm going to take this. My ego just got hit, because I just thought not one person has tried to hire me in the last probably 4 years. That's the honest truth. I don't think I've had an approach from anyone trying to hire me in the last 4 years, which is wild. Saying that 4 years, probably not 4 years. Go last 2 years. I think about like the founder thing, but since Fly Story.
Yeah, well, I don't think people try and, I think if you founder and CEO, I generally don't think people try and hire someone from that, because it's like an uphill battle. Like you're taking someone away from their whole mission, that, you know what I mean? Like almost, why would you?
Tim Cook, if you need someone to reinvent your events, I'm getting some good feedback when I'm speaking. I think I could jazz that thing up.
There you go.
No, I think that's really sensible. I'm going to check that tool out, 'cause it does sound awesome. Generally, my process is quite simple. I have people that I admire that I make a mental note of. Speaks a lot to building a personal brand. People I think give interesting takes. And typically they are front of mind. Right opportunity. And opportunities are either for us or a client. I can't count the number of times I refer people to clients. Based on either I have first-hand experience, and I'm very honest, this person, I respect how they think, I think they're interesting, you could be a good fit, or equally, I say, this is a person I've worked with and this is my perspective. I think that's a foundation. I'm big on referrals. I go to our clients and I go to people I respect, senior marketeers, people that I know have very high standards, people that I know that are hard to please. I typically go to those guys first. And if they give me a really, really strong advocacy of any individual, then I'm usually in. However, the challenge with that is I can go in with strong bias at that point if I really respect someone's opinion. So I think you have to have your own objective criteria. The other thing then I'd probably say is when I actually find someone, if I'm cold, I'm going to say cold outreach, I don't know them, I will typically look for people that have gone to a company I like, but have had rapid promotion. And that can be in part because of opportunity. People have left. More often than not, rapid promotion is either signaling that people are trying to keep them or they're doing a phenomenal job. So 4 times out of 5, it's one of those two things. So I'll generally look for people. And that doesn't mean if you haven't had rapid promotion that you're not in that camp, but I do think it's a strong signal. You go, company that I admire, combine that then with a rapid progression, and that to me is a really strong signal that this person's great. And at that point, I'll usually, go straight to being willing to have that kind of chemistry meet, or refer them to the hiring manager or such. But generally speaking, I think not enough companies put. The one bit I will disagree with on you is I found it interesting that you said a day in the life to really make you think in a practical way. I think that's really interesting. Yeah. The bit I disagree with is like almost disbanding the job spec, because I do that way too often, and then I start to morph roles around people. And I actually know you do those that you hire a disservice when you're too flexible. You should be very specific around what you want, what you need. And if I meet someone great, I tend to be a bit agreeable and pliable. And I don't think it's the right thing by them, and it's probably not the right thing for the company either,
Yeah, I think it speaks more to the kind of roles I'm hiring for right now. Like, I'm looking for generalists, and when you're a small startup marketing team, right, you kind of don't need specialists. You just need people who can pretty much do a lot of things. So sometimes I'll get in interviews and they'll kind of like go into the JD a bit too much. And I'm like, actually, I'm just trying to get a feel for you. And these are kind of soft skills you can learn. You can pick up our content process. You can pick up our SEO. I think if you're hiring for an agency, it's slightly different in my mind, where you have these specific outcomes you're looking for. But yeah, that makes sense.
Dude, I want to try something new with you. I want to do a segment, and I'm going to call this Missed Opportunity of the Month. I'm absolutely just pulling this on the fly right now.
That was great. I like it.
Missed brand opportunity of the month. I'm going to give you mine. You can either add to it or add your own. The portal that an artist created between New York and Dublin was really interesting. And for anyone that isn't aware, basically a portal, real-time, shows New York, Dublin, connecting the two destinations together. What happens? Well, a lot of the Irish folks start ribbing the people in New York. You had some kind of creator did something rude on camera in New York and they had to shut it down. You had some drunk people doing a lot of crazy things in Dublin, as you would expect. So it's kind of good internet banter and good funny. It's funny in that context. I think, and I have not seen this, a brand may have done something. When that had a moment, and for the first week of its reveal, I saw it time and time again hitting feeds as this really cool installation. The fact that a brand did not insert themselves in that conversation and do a stunt or do something interesting or funny, I think is a massively missed opportunity. And as I am saying this out loud, I wish I should have pitched this myself to someone. And when I say missed opportunity, I am largely also speaking to myself, because I think about that going, right opportunity, right band, could have done something very cool there. What do you think? What are your thoughts? Is there any other missed opportunities you've seen this month?
The first thing I'll say is that I think one of the missed opportunities actually is the portal itself. I think it was an amazing idea, and I love the execution. I just wish they'd chosen two cities that felt a bit more different than New York and Dublin. That's kind of
cool.
I just felt like they were two kind of Western English speaking cities, and I think a lot of people in New York had probably already visited Dublin. A lot of people in Dublin.
Man,
I mean, as someone who lives in New York, I think I have friends with more Irish people than I am friends with American people. So it didn't feel like I was looking into another world, which I think was the intention. But I agree. Putting that aside, I would say to you all that there were probably hundreds of brands being pitched portal ideas. The problem is they didn't get out of approval fast enough. I imagine that the number of creative decks that had a portal concept in, I would bet there were hundreds, there were thousands maybe. But as you know, the approval to get that signed off.
The graveyard of good ideas behind process and inaction. Absolutely. What would be your destination in that case then? Give me two off the cuff. Catman, where are you dropping that portal?
Bangkok.
Oh, wow. This guy, he's had a picante and he's off to...
I don't know where you think picante is from, mate.
A Mai Tai. He's had a Mai Tai. He's dropping it in Bangkok.
Do you know somewhere that's very vibrant, that's very different, that has just a bit more chaos? I think New York has chaos. I don't know if Dublin has that same kind of level of chaos.
Can I give
either
you
that or
I'm going to go a step further. Come on, Patagonia. Come on, Canada Goose. We're going to drop that portal. We're going to put that on some death-defying feet that people regularly go up. Yeah. Obviously, probably impossible with the technology and lack of energy or whatever. I'm not talking in the realm of practical, but I would have put that up a destination, sponsored, brought to you. I'd have wrapped a little jacket. I'd have done some CGI shit around it. Boom. If you're listening, anyone from a purpose-driven brand, there you go. Fly Story.
Yep.
You can have that one for free.
Yeah, but I just checked now. I do believe the portal is reopening over the weekend, so there is still chance. There's still time to pitch. For me, I can't believe a dating app hasn't done something. I can't believe Hinge or Bumble haven't. There you go. Write it down.
Hinge is our client, by the way. So I'm like, I actually should message this to the team. That is a great idea.
I'll invoice you at the end of the call.
It's fun. So you're thinking a date between Irish. Let's take an Irish beauty. That's someone with dark hair and I think blue eyes. And then do a typical New Yorker. That could be cool.
Yeah, or they meet at the portal.
That is a dope idea.
You stage it. So they hold up a sign, say, call me, text me, they start a relationship.
Jay, don't edit this clip super slow, and we'll make a deck in no time. Yeah, I love that, dude. Have you seen anything else that you really like? Missed opportunity or?
Missed opportunity. I would say, I guess this is not a missed opportunity, but on the topic of dating apps and out-of-home activations, Bumble did a quite a large-scale out-of-home campaign recently, and I think was one of the more kind of shocking pieces of advertising I've seen. They basically attacked I think what is probably the biggest danger to the dating app business, which is celibacy, and they actually made ads which encouraged young women specifically to have more sex, which in itself, you see that as a, this is a business which is trying to solve the kind of wider problem, which would actually expand their market. It actually came across as a bit of a sentiment crime. It kind of went against what I see as a lot of Bumble's brand values as being, empowering to women and giving them ownership and control over the dating situation. And all of a sudden felt a little bit off key and the reaction was pretty negative, and so not so much a missed opportunity, but a
swing and a miss.
A swing and a miss.
Yeah, I thought it was tone deaf. I think they've done a few questionable choices. Whitney came out and started talking about the influence of AI on dating as well. And again, it feels a little tone deaf where we're looking for human connection. And you're right, their values have deeply been rooted in safeguarding women. Women make the first move. And it's interesting. It kind of just feels like proximity bias. I always think like New York, I'm getting like very city vibes from that narrative. And actually in the context of probably where the vast majority of their audiences and people that use the app, it's not just in your major cities. And it just feels like a very New York thing to come out, you know? It speaks a lot, actually, just like a broader point around representation and voices in the industry. And we have all these kind of biases that exist. And it's why we're seeing a lot of the same work over and over again. But yeah, I agree. I thought it was a little tone deaf in a number of ways. And historically, Bumble have been on fire. Feels a little lost and maybe a bit desperate. I'll tell you what I did love. The beauty brand of the moment. This is going to be my ad of the month. And believe it or not, it is a corporate communication ad, which is not known for creativity and irreverence and cutting through. But e.l.f. Beauty, they basically came out and called out all the dicks in New York's financial district. So the context of the ad was basically that as a publicly listed business, there are more people called like Richard, Dick, sitting on boards of publicly listed companies than there are underrepresented groups, being women and minorities. And I just thought it was a really clever way to deliver a purpose driven message that's rooted in their values. And this is part of, I assume, would have been a corporate comms initiative. And I just thought it was smart. And I had hope that typically these more conservative ends of the marketing spectrum, you don't have to be boring. You can stay true to yourself as a brand and you can show up in creative ways. And I think it hit the tone right. And just a really smart bit of copy, pointed then with like a little bit of context in a graphic, simple to execute, well done. And I'm sure the distribution would have been phenomenal. It hit my feed, probably hit a lot of people, would have hit many DMs around the world. I can't imagine how many dicks got tagged in that, you know? So bravo to them.
Yeah, I always love it when a traditionally unsexy business is able to get the reach that obviously a consumer-facing business is usually expected to get. So, love it.
Yeah. And on that note, dude, we'll have a short ep this week because I am so tired. It's not that late here, but I am absolutely peppered. So I'm going to bounce. I'm going to love and leave you. And we'll speak soon.
See you next week.